Ready to go?
Yep.
All right. Hi, everybody on YouTube. This is our International Podcast Day special. With me, thankfully, he kind of returned from the past to the future. Don't think about it too much. Your head's going to just get confused. If you want to think about it, please, under medical supervision, self-medicate, because it might help you understand that reference. But for those of you watching on YouTube, uh, what International Podcast Day is, it's kind of a celebration geared towards more of the indie podcasters like myself, like the man was at during his time. But it's a celebration of how we could share our process with all of you, uh, kind of pull back the curtain, share some fun stories, and share, take you on the process of how we as podcasts do it, especially us indie creators, which have to do some weird tweaks. We're not celebrities like Joe Rogan or a lot of other big time celebrities that you might know from a show or um, a movie that have their kind of a built-in audience. They don't really need to promote. We have to do that. We get to share that with you. And plus, it's a way for you, dear listener, dear viewer, to kind of share the stuff you listen to, whether it's the independent creators, and it's a way of you saying, "Hey, I listen to indie podcasts." Now, granted, this section is going to be cut out for the audio side because I want to have my own little intro for it. But that pause was so I can introduce my co-host for this particular episode. It is once Mixon. Am I pronouncing it
Yep. Yep.
that right? Better known as the man. And as I stated in our main episode last week, he is and was the former main person behind Slacker and the Man. And as I said last week, we've been posting up over the past couple of months uh, the limited supply of Slacker and the Man episodes that we had and the covert cast. As much if we had more, we'd be sharing more. And for those folks out there, a lot of podcasts don't last as long as mine or as long as the man's did, which is well over 5 years or longer. Most don't last a month, most don't last a year. And later this episode, on the audio side, you'll hear our podcast 101 panel that we did several years ago. And it's just a weird process. And the man jump in whenever you so want. Let me put it like this. Because he's here, let me uh, I'll I said this many times on my show. I I took some of, I wouldn't say your foundation or
hmm
some of your bullet points from your show into mine, i.e., keeping the the intro music under as minute or less.
Right.
I kept that up. Trying to keep things entertaining. And granted, I couldn't be Slacker and the Man. I had to find my own footing. And some of the other things I took, I was like, all right, because I was a very loyal listener to your show, I was like, okay, what progress over their years what bullet points, what model can I use? I'm like, all right, within year two, they were covering conventions. By year three, year four, they had a couple of panels. And by year five, they had a booth. Um, to my surprise, because what I didn't expect is like I expected to have a network. I won't say a network, but like you had with yours, you came to be friends with these people and these people. You had a network of people. Um, it turns out there was a local event happening or being started up in our area at that time. This is no secret, folks. It's in our history. It was called Four State SlasherCon, and wanted to. I was like, hey, I'm just starting this shit. Can we cover yours? It's like, hey, if I need to, buy a ticket, I'm willing to buy a ticket. Um, During this time, Podbean had the aspect of Yeah, sure. If you sneeze on an episode, you got a listener.
Right.
Yeah, you sneezed at it, and that kind of helped in some way in getting some interviews. I was Mix. You don't mind, first off, you don't mind being called Mix, do you?
Nope. Nope. You're good.
Okay. Um, I was like, I was when you're first starting out, you're very raw. You know what
Oh,
to do, but you don't know what to do. And a lot of the interviews I got, the noise was wrong. It was like too overpowering during the interviews. But we were doing interviews, and some of the interviews we got were just bad, but not in regards to content, but in regards to noise quality, because it was so many people in confined space. And during that time, I was like, here I am. In essence, I got a press pass without getting a press pass, and here I am. The show's not even 3 months old. I'm like, so far, I'm kicking ass with the goals, and I'm like, and next thing I know, it's like one of the guys that's organizing. From what he tells me, it's like, shit, I don't have somebody to be a moderator for a panel. Oh, this guy's going to be covering the event. I got an email. How would you like to be moderating the crow panel? Motherfucker, son of a bitch. Okay. All right,
so
let's get this. Go ahead.
so the way we got started was we started Slacker and the Man back in 2008. And at that time, there really weren't a whole lot of podcasts. There certainly wasn't all the celebrity podcasts like you have now. Nowadays, every celebrity has a podcast, and there's a lot of professional sounding podcasts out there. There's podcasts that are produced in radio studios and all that. We didn't have all that. I was a huge fan of talk radio. Howard Stern, Ron and Fez. Locally here in Florida, there was a show called The Monsters. At the time, now they're the Monsters in the morning. At the time, they were Monsters in the midday. And the Monsters had a whole cast of people, and they would write out bits, they would do stunts, they would interview people, stuff like that. And I was a huge fan of that show. And I remembered listening to podcasts, and it just wasn't the same as listening to the radio. It was not as I don't want to say professional, but it wasn't as entertaining as listening to talk radio. So I kind of took everything they were doing and I copied it for us on a more local level. And talking about doing conventions and stuff, when we first started doing conventions, we have a big convention in Orlando in Florida every year called MegaCon. And the first one of those we went to, we paid to get in, and it was literally, I had printed a bunch of flyers, and just everybody that walked past me, I would hand a flyer, knowing most of them were going to throw them in the trash or throw them on the floor. But
Yeah.
after that first convention, I handed out 2,500 flyers and we were at that time we were getting about 100 people an episode to listen. And after that first megacon where I handed out all those flyers, all of a sudden the next episode we had like 700 people listen. I thought, well, god, well, if I got 700 and I wasn't really trying, this will be even better. So megacon rolls around the next year, and I had heard a story about Evil Knievel. Of course, everybody knows famous stuntman Daredevil Evil Knievel, and the way he got one of his stunts off the ground was he had called one of the Vegas hotels and wanted to do a stunt. And they told him nobody knew who he was; they weren't going to do it. So he got a bunch of different phone numbers, went to different people's houses, sent snail mail because that was the thing at the time. Hey, we hear you're going to have Evil Knievel. Hey, we hear you're going to have Evil Knievel. Well, after about a month of this, they called him back. They're like, hey, evidently you do have a following. We would like you to come do a stunt at the hotel. So I took that approach and I started emailing MegaCon I made hundreds of different email accounts at the time. Hey, we hear Slacker and the Man's going to be one of the press at your convention. Where are they going to be at? Hey, we hear Slacker and the Man's going to be at your convention interviewing so and so. And it took about a month and a half of doing that. Next thing I know, just like with Evil Knievel, MegaCon emails me, hey, we've got a bunch of response from people wanting to know if you're going to be there. Would you like a press pass for the convention? So that opened the doors. Once the other conventions found out that MegaCon had give us a press pass, because at the time podcasts didn't get press passes. That was usually reserved for major
Right.
media outlets.
Oh,
And
we'll
we
get
got a
into
press.
that. We'll get into that. I'll get into that in a bit. So go
Yeah.
ahead.
So, but once MegaCon had given us a press pass, and like I said, they were the biggest convention in Florida by far at the time. All of a sudden, all these other conventions once I applied for a press pass and I would put in there, hey, we'd like a press pass. These are our credentials. We've done MegaCon as a press pass. All of a sudden the doors were wide open for it. So, and that was really where our listenership started growing, was once I was able to do the conventions like that. And then that wound up rolling into us doing panels, and we did a zombie survival panel and that had been our for the because we did it from 2008 to 2014, so over 6 years we did the show, and every Halloween, every October, we would do a zombie survival episode, and that was our most downloaded episode all year, by far, every year. And we had a convention, want to know if we'd be interested in doing a panel. Anything we could think of, we could do a panel on. Would we be interested? I said, yeah, sure. We'll do a zombie survival panel because that's our most popular episode. Well, it was standing room only in that. So then next thing you know, we have other conventions asking us, hey, would you guys like to do a zombie survival panel? And it snowballed into that. Now, with that said, I don't want to make it sound like everything we did was a hit, because we tried a lot of things that fell flat on its face. We used to try to do roasts at the conventions, and we would roast. We started off roasting the different members of the show, and then we would get into roasting other people that were connected to the show, the people that would call in all the time and stuff like that. And that was a lukewarm response at the most. But the zombie survival thing was a hit all the time. But we did have a lot of things that fell flat on its face. It wasn't all success.
Yeah, that's the thing about podcasts. You're gonna have a shit ton of ideas, and for those out there, you're gonna have a shit ton. Some are going to work, some are not, and you have to deal with it. And one of the things that I stick with, and that's the name of my show, and it's no secret. A lot of people will have that knee jerk. I'm like, all right, are you here just to oppress the woman, the person next to you, to get between them and their genes, or what? Or did she drag you over here so you could do it? And they're like, what? Tell me you don't listen to shows without listening to shows. And I get it, because my thought process, because of your past and who you were on Slacker and the Man, my initial plan was, if your show came back, was to kind of have that aspect of kind of a wrestling motif of, like, almost like fate drama, like we won't really approach the line, but like, hey, you won't believe what happened on Slacker or the Man this week. Can you believe what those assholes did? So forth. It'd be like you and I would be like communicating back and forth and develop a script in regards to what to say, or kind of promoting each other to kind of bring in like a heel versus babyface type of ordeal. Yet in reality, it'd be like if I showed up to MegaCon and you guys were there and people knew who we are, and like, oh shit, things are going down. It's like the bro handshake, how's it doing? And like, hey man, we thought this was going to be an epic gang war or some shit. But here they are just hugging it out and then having a beer by the, the only thing they're arguing about is, why is one person drinking a Bud Light versus, a Yingling, that sort of shit. But
well, we now that you've mentioned it, we Dobbs and myself and Snuggles and McFly, we're still all very close. We we have a group chat that we communicate on daily, and every few months it gets brought up about at least doing another episode, doing a reunion show, and it just always we're all older now, and it's hard to get everybody on the same page, but it is something that is heavily discussed. Like I said, we do have a group chat. And it won't surprise anybody that used to listen to the show. The main topic of the group chat is usually trying to get Dobbs to send us a picture of his butthole, but we do discuss a reunion show quite often.
It's not. I won't say it's not much. I know things in your life has changed. Same thing with Dobbs. A lot of people are like, oh, getting a podcast to get, even if everything is working out, it's like, yeah, I no, you're hurting. You're not just hurting ducks or trying to get ducks in a row. You're hurting squirrels that are on cocaine and Monster Energy. You're not. You think it's going to work, but it's not. And I'll say this: drama is going to happen no matter what. Eventually, it's going to happen. Either
we dealt with our fair share of it.
We had one of the people is like, I don't care who the fuck you are. If one of the things I get hate from is that I'm a geek podcast. I say I'm a geek podcast. So a lot of people have that again, first knee jerk. So it's movies, comics. I'm like, no, 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 no. Fuck you. Fuck you. And they're like, what do you mean? I'll have a guy on talk about puppets for 30 minutes, and if that's their geek. And true story, I said that to somebody, and we have somebody that does puppet shows for kids in town. He has a puppet theater. And my buddy was like, all right, put your money where your mouth is and do an interview with that guy. And I'm like, all right. Hey, would you like to talk about your puppetry business? Okay. And I'm like, all right. That's what I mean. It's like geek is so narrow. Yeah, my core is sci-fi, comics, Star Wars, movies. Yeah, but if I'm able to talk with a motherfucker about cars for 30 minutes, I won't go and talk to a motherfucker about cars. Same thing with
100%.
tattoos. Why do I want to be in a box like that? And I'm like, no, you got. I'm like, no, it's so narrow, and I want to talk to like I talked to you about weightlifting and strongmen. That for a while is either you're still your geek, it's your thing. I got to, but that's sports. Somebody's geek is basketball. Fuck you. Fuck you. Yes, it's sports, but it's still geek. But it allows me to switch things up every now and again, and
That's the whole thing. I saw something on Facebook a long time ago, and it was about jocks making fun of geeks for playing D&D, but
yeah.
then they'll spend 2 hours doing their fantasy football, and it's like, bro, it's the same shit. You've got stats, you've got everything but dice. It's the same thing.
Right. And it allows me, yeah, I built my stuff to be mobile. I'll say this, I have it right here. I do a lot of solo work with this mic. This is the first mic I used. I bought one mic. That's this. It's a CAD condenser mic, USB, and I had a middle of like three people, myself and two other people. And later that year, my buddy was like, "Dude, you have to get a soundboard. You have to get more. You have to upgrade." And he's the one that I say he's not my second chair. He's not my second chair. He's also my hype person. A lot of people that I have as a co-host, they're not just that second chair that's warming a seat. They are, if I'm at an event, getting interviews, they're the ones that like, hey, Chris, come here. Did you see this motherfucker? This motherfucker is working on this. Speak to this motherfucker. And that they're setting up interviews for me and hyping me up. They're more than that second chair. And I've had that conversation with people on Facebook. It's like, wait a minute, you're just a second chair. I did a brief Google search on your podcast. You're not even the main host. You're just the second chair. How much you're here bitching about half the other podcast here, and you ain't doing work. That's all you're doing. And one of the in regards to drama, because it kind of relates. My one co-host that came on with me, right now she's going through some shit, meaning she had some personal drama that she had to leave, and right now her internet's crappy, so we can't do what we're doing now. And she said, once everything settles and I get back on my feet, we'll get back together. But at the time, I was suffering from burnout. She was suffering from burnout. And we both wanted to get together and like, okay, let's tag team. We could share the video, we could share the audio, so forth and so on. So it was a win-win scenario on all parties. And she was also running for up in Pennsylvania called Blobfest. The movie The Blob. They shut down the town to have a festival for the movie The Blob. And part of the thing is they had a Miss Blob, they call it Mix Blobfest. Think of beauty pageant sort of thing. But anybody could enter. Meaning if I wanted to be the godfather of Blobfest, I could sign up to gain votes and so forth and so on. And she signed up, and what happened was there were three public, including her, like 4 people that were notice that word, publicly in the running. And it came out that she was no longer in the running and two other people were no longer in the running. So she put out a post on Twitter and Instagram congratulating the fourth person. Then the people who run it were like, no, we had a couple of other people that were part of it. Turns out a lot of their stuff was private, and it was like, when you looked at the rules, everything had to be public. If you didn't want to be photographed or be in the public eye, it went to the next person, and it kept going to somebody who did sign it. And but they said, well, you're no longer in the running. You can't show up to any ticket events that you bought because you are harassing the people that were part of the event. She's like, what did I say other than congratulations, Jane Smith, on winning? What did I say? Where did I, harass these people or bully them? Oh, we're not telling you. Then I got involved. Oh, you don't want to tell her because she's her. Would you tell in an independent podcast like you would probably do?
Right.
No, we don't want to do it. And because I'll put it like this, how do I put this? A celebrity in the way of Mr. Beast is a celebrity, or PewDiePie is a celebrity. He does
influencer type celebrity.
A kind of influencer. He does his own Twitch horror host type of ordeal, and because of his quasi celebrity, his partner thinks she has celebrity status.
She has the same clout he does.
Right. Yet she doesn't. And she got on my case and her case, and she turned to, in essence, to me through group chat that my podcast, her words were, your podcast is nothing more than a manifesto for mass shooters. I went, oh, really? Fuck you. I'm using what you said. And I made memes on my account. You can find it on my post saying, voted number one by those who don't listen as a manifesto for mass shooters. And that's what people hate. And that's what one person in the group hated. That when I say we're the number one hated geek, mafia themed geek podcast by everyone on the internet, and when I said it on and everybody in this group, that one person that was fighting me in that group started coming up and it's like, I made a vague statement. If the shoe fit, it irked the fuck out of you because I'm using your hate against you. And I'm eating it up because I'm like, then fucking block me. It's so goddamn easy.
Right.
Block me. But still having the aspect of doing panels, I've had a booth. I love local shows. I don't know about you. Yeah, I love big shows. I love the big shows. But
my favorite are the ones we wound up having a really good relationship with a local show in the Central Florida area called Vulcan Events, and they were a Star Trek centric con, but they were a very small con. They all of theirs were always in the ballroom of a hotel. And we wound up having a very good relationship with them. The people that owned and ran the con were fans of the show. And I will tell you now, I had more fun at their conventions than I did any of the big ones we went to because we were more or less given free reign to do whatever we want. Matter of fact, the crowning jewel in our celebrity interview stuff was I know you'll probably remember Casper Van Dien.
I wish I had that. I wish I had that episode still. I would be airing that episode every other fucking
Johnny Rico from Starship Troopers. He was a guest at one of their conventions, and they got him to call into our show beforehand, and we wound up becoming friends with him. And we had him on the show a couple of times. Matter of fact, I think one of the interviews we did with him is still on the Slacker and the Man YouTube. But like you said, the small local shows, I had way more fun at those than I did the big shows had become by that point, and even more so now, they were corporate events. It was all about making money. It wasn't about the attendees. It wasn't about anybody having a good time or getting what they wanted. It was all about the dollar. But the small
Yeah.
shows were still about the people at the show, and we had such a good time at those shows. I wish
For
Vulcan events, um, or Away Mission is what they changed it to before they went defunct. I wish they were still around, because even not doing the show, I'd still be going to those because I had that much
for
fun at them.
for me in this area, it's Four State Pop and Comic Con. They hold two events a year. One here is close to me in the Hagerstown, Maryland area, and they kind of it used to be twice a year in the same spot in Hagerstown, and they're like, no, let's bring one of the events to Pennsylvania, so it's in the state capital, and they've been growing every year. And we have my show has that same way. As long as I'm behaving myself, I'm being polite, I have free reign, and it's like, oh, I got this new piece of equipment. I'm going to test it out on a small scale at Four
Right.
State and bring it that way. If I cover something big, I know I could probably amp it up. And one of the things I've always done is that I've recorded panels, not just my own, but asked permission to record panels, um, because a lot of people are like, why would you do that? Because that way, the relationship I have with Four State is that if they choose to, oh, let's say they want to open up a third location or have a third event, which would be a pain in the ass, but let's say they wanted to do that, they can say, all right, here's what we've done with a panel, who we had with a panel, what went on. And so in a way, I'm promoting them or helping them out. And one of the instances was this happened this year. They had voice actress Tara Sands. She
Mhm.
voiced Mokuba on in Yu-Gi-Oh! And a few others. At that event, they were supposed to have um, the voice of Squidward, but due to things beyond his control, he couldn't make it at that event. So they moved his appearance to Hagerstown, and I missed out. But Tara called a friend of hers and saying, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, nothing. How would you like to do a con this weekend? And they booked her for that event, and they both did a panel. I was like, Tara, I got to ask you, you have full right to say no. I would like to record your panel. Do what you need. You could say no. If you want the audio, you're more than happy to, because I know you have your own podcast. And she said, go right ahead. And I had the portable equipment with me, and I set up, and her and the person that she was speaking with, the person she was speaking with, like, why is he setting up to record? And she said, I'm letting him record because he's the only person that asked me politely. That's something else. And one year I covered because of a friend knew that what we did, and he did a Bigfoot event. He let us cover his event, and we were trying to get doing our thing there and get panels. And we had one group like, oh, this is just, we got this panel, this panel, this panel. It's a sausage fest. Let's get a different view. Let's ask the women, to record their panel. We got pretty much, fuck you. Fuck you. We'll let you do 5 minutes. I'm like, no, if I can't do the whole thing, what's the point of recording 5 minutes?
Right.
And when by that time we're packing up, and what were they doing? They were complaining for the first 5-10 minutes of their panel that they couldn't be heard because it was too noisy. I'm like, yeah, if you said, and I told my buddy, I pulled him in close. I'm like, yeah, they wouldn't have this issue if they let us record, because all they would have had to do is say, for those of you interested in the panel and can't hear us, these two motherfuckers are recording the panel. Go see them for a flyer. That's all they had to say. And but in one case, it's like, I don't want to record the panel with you. I don't want you to record my panel, but I will have an interview with you. I'm like, can do. and it's just that love and build up relationships and having that group. And in one event, I have a booth and having that relationship, and I'm setting up the table. I'm talking to my buddy, as the people coming in, I get a knock on the table, and I look up. It's one of part of the network, the friends I've made over the years. He said, "I want you to record my panel." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Yeah, we're talking about this. I want you to record it for us." I'm like, "All right, fine, fine." It's that, but the bigger thing, my buddy was like, after our second year, he's like, "Why don't you try for something bigger?" Now, here's where our experiences differ and my thought process differs. For long-standing hate prior to us getting my show getting a press pass, I had this hate for Otakon. It's an anime convention, one of the biggest in the United States. And when I first went back in 06, I was, as a filthy casual, I was treated like shit. And I had that attitude. And it was one of the folks that was part of your podcast. They went to have a panel there. It was the cosplayer that you had on in later seasons, so to speak.
Okay, female.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Her name is and she was treated like shit. And I was like, yeah, they treated me like shit. So it's nice to know it wasn't just the peon filthy casuals that they treated like shit. So I decided, looking through their press pass credentials, it was, oh, you had to be established for 2 years. I'm like, we're 1 year, 10 months old right now. So let me see if they'll let us squeeze by. And we just got done interviewing the biggest quasi celebrity. We got finished at the last event. We did a Power Rangers panel, and I interviewed the voice of Jessie from Team Rocket from the original Pokemon series. And I used that to get it. And they were like, "Congratulations, you're covering Otakon this year." I'm like, "Olive branch, motherfucker, let me cover it." and they're like, "We're not doing it in DC. We're not doing it in Baltimore this year. We're doing it in DC." I'm like, "That's even freaking easier for me. I could take the MARC train into DC, spend the day, and come home. So no skin off my back. Don't have to worry about parking. Don't have to worry about gas. Don't have to worry about this. Day trip." And I felt welcomed by the con staff and the fans. It wasn't until a year after COVID, 2021, I decided I'm going to do all 3 fucking days. I'm going to do full tilt. And like, I'll use you as a model. Slack, your show as a model, because that's, again, my basis was, if I'm going to an event, I'm not just taking photos and telling folks I went, I had a good time. I have to expand on that, because when you covered Star Wars Celebration, MegaCon, you actually went into everything that happened, not just we went, we had a good time. Next topic.
Oh no, yeah, when we would do a convention like that, the whole episode that week would be the convention, us covering it, the interviews we got, what happened in the nightlife, it was almost an easy out, because I didn't have to prepare anything, because everybody was there. We'd all experienced the same things, and it was something easy to talk about for a whole episode.
Yeah, and for me, that was like, I'll talk about the episode, the experiences, the whole 9 yards. I have, if not a video, something recording video, I'm doing it. Up to that point, I do at least 1 audio episode, if not 2, because again, easy content. First episode, we talk about going to the event. Second episode, I got the press release in regards to the numbers. So the second episode, there was a segment, Otakon by the numbers. Go through the numbers, go through what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly, what the fans were saying after the show through the fan group on Facebook, and cover that. Plus they had, again, video. I would record a walking tour of the dealer room, the game room. One man doing all this shit, covering everything. And the people that were actually doing interviews didn't have any, at least I saw, didn't have any recording equipment of any sort, no pen, no paper. It seemed like they were just there just to shake a hand. Hey, how you doing? What's the project? Oh, went home. That's it. And so in 2021, let's do this all 3 days. I saved up for it, did all 3 days. I did 5 videos, if not 6. I did 5 audio episodes. That's including the interview I got. And plus photos for Instagram, Facebook, the usual outlets. And the good thing happened. This is where I dived a little bit deeper into it. Is that when I was in the green room waiting for my interview, one of the folks was like, yeah, we didn't get a chance to do an interview. We're on a wait list because we applied late for the press pass. We didn't get a chance to get scheduled. I'm like, all right. I got this interview. I was going to ask them about meeting. Think of it like this. Best way to put it. Let's say you and I were covering a show. Slacket and the Man was still around. We both have a press pass. We both have an interview for Walter Cronin. Me being a Babylon 5 fan, Walter questions. Babylon 5 questions. You're going to interview him about the movies and Star Trek.
Yep.
And if you applied late and I got the interview, I'm like, hey, we tag team this motherfucker.
Yep.
We tag team. And that's the thing with this person. I knew, familiar with some of his older work, not familiar with his newer work. And I was going to ask some questions and some of the rumors and dramas I was hearing in the voice acting community. And I was like, listen, if the con staff themselves don't care, you could tag team with me, providing you give me, written credit somewhere, saying special thanks to the Reverend Godfather for letting us team up, something like that. Waited a week, waited 2 weeks to see if they had anything on there posted in regards to their video that they got, the audio they got, or anything like that. No, didn't cover it. It was just, yeah, we had somebody go to Otakon, they got an interview, that was it.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, how are you invited back again? I'm like, and what happened was in 2022, I got fired from my job that I was working at, and due to them deciding they want to be the equivalent of the next Amazon in regards to the policies, and it was starting to fast track a lot of symptoms or issues I had with my type 2, and I wasn't liking that. And because I took too much time off, they went bye-bye. And I decided I can't go to Otakon even for the day when I might need the funds to help look for a job. Looking for a job is more important than going to a convention, even as a podcast standpoint. And not to mention they had the whole aspect of, in 2021, it was all you needed to go to the show was wear a mask due to COVID restrictions. This time around, not just wear a mask, but you had to show papers in regards to shot or negative test.
Right.
And even though I had a shot, again, I was saying I'm not going due to I got laid off. Not to mention, this was after, I think I put up the video after Otakon happened. I was like, yeah, thank God I didn't go. It seems like because in 2021 through the website, the Facebook fan groups, there was a lot of racism happening, meaning the folks, let's say someone was dressed up as a character with a very tight fitting, like Storm from X-Men, or Jean Grey from X-Men, and a person that was of a lighter skin tone was okay. A person of color, they were like, oh, you can't wear that here, you have to leave.
Wow.
And in some instances where
Was Dobbs running this convention?
No. And some people was like, other allegations were going on was that if I lost my badge, all I would have to do is go up to the booths, tell them I lost my badge. No problem. Here's a reissue. You're good to go. And the people of color, sorry, pay us $40.
Wow.
And I talked about that. Not to mention in my 2022 video, my vlog, saying that, hey, not only that, it looks like this year they did not plan too well, because I have the thought process that every con should plan for maximum occupancy. You should have that plan just in
Absolutely.
case. If the room for that, if standing room is 40,000 people, you should have that plan in place. They didn't. They had, I think, mass capacity was like 45,000. They had 42. They didn't have that plan. I talked about it. I talked about how they had issues where a lot of things that were coming to light was that for if you were a diehard Dragon Ball Z fan or a diehard One Piece fan, you were okay. But if you were a filthy casual, you were not. You were treated badly. You were a filthy casual. Go away. In essence, the elitist, the gatekeeping, the elitist gatekeeping aspect of things. And granted, now it's 2 years after that video. I get a comment on the video saying, if I don't know everything about everything in regards to anime, I shouldn't be covering it as a podcaster.
It sounds like the typical anime community to me.
And I'm like, I explain, it's like, no, if I'm coming there if they have a K-pop band or somebody that I'm familiar with and I want to speak to, I should be able to go speak to them at that event and cover that for my audience. I'm a geek podcast. I should be able to cover the event. Now, I showed my friends your video, and they're the ones that said, unless you know everything about everything, you shouldn't be. I'm like, wait a minute. My thought process is like, wait a minute. That's like me going to a Star Trek convention, and because I didn't see every episode of every Star Trek from not just the original and the cartoon, but Picard, the Lower Decks, the other stuff that's come out, every writer, every actor, the actual
not just if you haven't seen it, but if you don't remember every line from every show.
Yeah, you're not allowed to be there. That's elitist. I'm like, that sounds like your friends are a bunch of elitist gatekeeping scum.
That's exactly what it is.
That's why it's like part of me wants to reply even days later saying, thanks for shedding light on the elitism and gatekeeping again that a lot of fandoms have nowadays. So it's that thing, and it's like, but I'd say, but with stuff, having friends like you or colleagues like you in the industry in regards to it, there's other friends I know that started about the same time I did. He goes by Justin Leal. He started like I did, and it's like, oh, I got word this happened. Hey, you're right now covering a lot of things Disney, hand off, and stuff like that. There is that aspect of things like passing the word around. And when Google Podcast came through, I think, like, first to sign up, Justin, sign up, get in on it. And I do the same thing with you. It's like, all right, here's the thing. And what I do with mine is that if somebody's able to explain it better, I'll preference context between back and forth. Like, this person, I'm not stealing their work. Yes, I am, but I'm not stealing their work. But they better explain it than I do. I had an issue. I think I want to say you would have been proud of me in regards to it, because I got teamed up with a promoter a celebrity promoter, and he was getting, I mean, wasn't really working that well. And I did a team up like I would be on yours, so to speak. I was on another person's. We were discussing several topics, and next thing I know, well, the main host like, yeah, you're going to be hit up by, since you're associated with this promoter, he's going to contact you in regards to, because of one of my other guests. And the first thing, not even 2 days later, why were you on this podcast with that person? Because the main host invited me, and it was a great discussion. The guest you had on this person was a blatant racist. What did he say? Well, he said this word to a client of mine, and his words were, he said these racist words on a show. Okay, my first response was, what was the show's name? When did it air? What do you want to? Why did you ask that? Because I want to listen to it, and if this is true, I will go on my show and call him out.
Right.
And I will air the full. I will snip a minute prior to a minute after that, if not 5 minutes prior to 5 minutes after, so everybody gets full context. It's not. It wasn't an episode of a podcast or a YouTube video. It was what us in the industry call a phone call. Then you have no evidence.
Right.
You have no. It's just your word against him. You don't like him. He doesn't like you. You just want, this, that, and the other. But the thing is, the first part of all this, he was texting me this, and I'm doing screenshots, sending them to the other person, like if it was you, like, just in case he starts defaming you and it's a legal issue, you have some evidence in your corner.
You have your proof.
You have some proof. And it's like, I'm not taking your side, I'm not taking his side. I'm being Switzerland in this matter. And at one point, he calls me up and he's like, well, if you don't want, like, this big celebrity, if you don't want, let's say Robert Downey Jr., you'll never get him. I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
I literally, like, I was brushing him off, and he spent like 15 minutes huffing on the phone. I'm like, dude, like, and I never spoke to him again. It's like, good chance he's a scam. I will say this. I will ask you this. During your time, did you get the so-called promoters through your Instagram messaging like, we can make you big on Apple?
No, because at that time, it wasn't, social media wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, you got to think, when we were doing it, MySpace was the big social media. Facebook was still in its infancy. Now, but my wife, she does a lot of TikTok content, and she gets that stuff several a day of the promoter that's going to do this and do that. And usually it's a bot. You can tell it's a bot, or it's somebody with some sort of scam or something like that.
Yeah. Folks, let me put it like this. Don't do it. It's a scam. It's
right.
A lot of places like YouTube, I can't speak for the podcasting platforms, but YouTube, Rumble might do it, have policies in place that if you bot, even if it is a way to kind of force engagement because of algorithms, they could ban you in a heartbeat because of you doing that. So don't. It's not worth it. I'll let you in on this as well. I'm the reason why podcasters can't go to our local library and do a podcast there anymore. Let me tell you this, because, again, my show's mobile. I used to record at our local library. They had a small conference room, nice and quiet, and it was free. And I don't know about, you live what, near Tampa?
Yeah.
You don't have to close to Tampa. Good chance. And I found out in recent years, bigger libraries like Tampa, Miami, Houston, LA, New York, those libraries have podcast rooms for those who can't afford it. And my library, because they switched directors, and that director was doing shit like removing Braille books because no one was checking them out. And pretty much a whole mess of people were getting fired. And because of this new director, and then during this time, you had news come out in regards to folks like Joe Rogan and other celebrities making like $2 million, $3 million, like Jake Paul and all that, making $2-3 million for that podcast. Oh, you're earning money for your podcast. Therefore, it's a business, and therefore we're not letting you record here anymore. And I'm like, do you realize about the ones that are making that are less than like 0.01%? And if any podcast is making money, it's not that much. And I told him, and I used your show as an example because you gave the numbers one day. I don't know the exact number. It's like, I know of a show, and I didn't give the show's name. I was like, his show was getting at max 3,000 listeners per episode. He had a affiliate sponsor. Guess how much he made a week? How much? Less than $5.
Yeah.
You're like, what do you mean? Because after everything was said and done, he made $200 over a course of a year. $200, $300 a week. You expect that's a whole, even with a type of AdSense, we're not making that much. Oh, but no. But because show ADHD, let me tell you this. I can't get into AwesomeCon. Want to know why?
Why?
I'm not Jake Paul. No, seriously, when you look at the difference between, I'll give you the 3 examples. With Otacon, it didn't matter the size. You just had to have a post up content because they checked, and existed for 2 years. And so therefore I qualified. Baltimore, you had to at least show proof. They told us, AwesomeCon told us no, go. In essence, it sounded, their denial sounded like, no, go fuck yourselves, go buy a ticket. Whereas Baltimore Comic-Con, again, one of the biggest comic cons in the country, with a small time feel to it, said, no, but we would love you to buy a ticket and do what you do at our show. We welcome you to do what you do. That was so, at least when you read between the lines, that's what it was saying. We want you to come and check it. And that was more welcoming because we found out later by someone who did have a press pass, they want you to have Baltimore Comic-Con content before approving you. And we didn't have that yet. So that's why it was like, we're telling you no, but we're telling you yes.
Right.
whereas AwesomeCon, it's like right now looking at YouTube standards for monetization. You have to have at least 5,000 subscribers, have at least 10,000 viewable content on YouTube, 50,000 audio listeners. You have to be pretty much as big as Jake Paul or one of those, or an Angry Joe, and just in order to get through the door. And I had one person that I was kind of friends with because he runs a show down in Richmond. And he said, well, the main reason why we don't do press passes any is because a lot of the podcasters were abusing it. I'm like, well, you either do one of 2 choices. One, you do your checks, and if they use you for a ticket, you don't invite them back if they apply next year. 2, and with that, you tell them explicitly, unless you're buying a ticket, meaning if you offer up a poster or a comic, they don't get that, period, unless they buy a ticket. 2, and when everything's done, they post up, they share with you what they posted up, or they don't come back next year. Or you have some sort, or what my buddy said, you have a influencer ticket, meaning it's the cost of a VIP access ticket or more. Meaning where if a VIP ticket, like Megcon might have a VIP for $200,
Mhm.
it's $400. But you got access to a green room, you have interviews, you have way more access than somebody with a VIP because you're
Right.
pressed. You're buying a ticket. That way you're not out money. You're forcing them to do content. And or you have to do these checks. And I get hems and haws. I'm like, well, each their own. I don't, again, small shows. That's why I love 4 State. Um, but you have that. I love what I do. I'm sure I knew you loved what you did.
Oh, I did. I loved every minute of it.
What's even though I shared the last episode of this was a couple of months ago of Slacker and the Man where you kind of aired some dirty laundry. I was like, oh wait a minute, it's only going to get 10 listens. Fuck this. Um, I will say this side note, during the midst of posting all this, guess who I messaged the show?
Who's that?
Nash.
Oh, and wow! I haven't even talked to Nash in years.
And my thing was like, as soon as I got it, and it was like, "This is Nash. I'm glad you." I'm like, my first response was not professional. It was Nash.
Yeah, yeah.
But
We definitely we had a rotating cast of characters on the show there towards the end.
yeah. So, well, as an old head, I mean that with the utmost respect.
Mm-hmm.
What even though you've been out of the game for a good many years, and the game has changed, believe me, it's changed in the 9 years
Oh,
I've been doing it. Um, what tips would you give somebody that wants to try it now? I wouldn't say try it now, but wants to kind of maybe dabble.
so my biggest thing is one thing I've noticed because I've had people over the last few years that have, listened to our show and wanted to start their own thing. And one of the common things I see is people try to go out and spend $1,000 on equipment and then start a show. My biggest tip I could give anybody, start simple, start small, record your shows, get you something you can use, even if it's your earbuds with your iPad or your iPhone, or even just recording it on your phone. Record your shows, listen to them, post up a couple episodes, see if people are interested. And then if they are and your show's growing from there, organically kind of grow and buy your equipment from there. That would be my biggest tip for anybody is don't kill yourself trying to buy soundboards and professional mics and all that right off the bat. Get your show started, find your feet, figure out what you actually need because people will sell you a bunch of crap you don't need and then grow from there.
I I'm the same way. It's like I had to grow. I went from a one particular soundboard because three people was wanting to do it in voices. I needed to grow. It was finding that and finding the feet and growing from there. And it was another buddy of mine that I worked with, and I was like, having a soundboard with 4 inputs is not cutting it. I need to upgrade, and I
Right.
went from there. And I tell folks, doing pawn shop finds is if you have to go to a pawn shop and get something gently used, do it. Even if it's a laptop to audio
Right.
edit stuff. A lot of things can be done for either cheap or free.
Yep.
Audacity. A lot of people are like, oh, you got use this. I'm like, Audacity is free.
Yep.
I've been using it for 9 years. Heck,
That's what
when
we
I
used for
start,
the entire run of our show was Audacity.
when I believe it or not, when me and my original co-host started, it was maybe about the same time you were starting yours. We didn't know all this. It wasn't like we had all this information when we started in 2008. We had all we had was we had a Mac. You went out and got, since it was a small room, one of these type of mics, and we were forced to use GarageBand, which only had a half-hour limit to it. And but it was a start. Don't be afraid to fail. If
Oh yeah.
Don't be afraid to grow. Don't If you post something up, if you have to post, I'll put it like this: if you have to post something up to get hate, do so. That way,
Mhm.
it thickens your skin a little bit. Even if you're doing it with the best intentions. Case in point, I got a D&D book in the. I put an order. I do unboxings. YouTube is free. It's that tool for you. It's available. Use it. Um, I did an unboxing. I reviewed it on air. The people who put out the book saw the video, posted it up to their Discord, their Twitter. It got right now. It's got like over 2,000 views on YouTube,
That's
and
awesome.
it's but it's not like one of the most disliked videos that I have because it gets a whole mess of fucking hate. Um, but the video editing software I use is Movie Maker, which I paid $10 for, and it's my Swiss
Mhm.
Army knife. And it's because a lot of times all I have to do is sew videos together, or like with this case, separate and trim videos and put them up. I don't need something overly complicated.
Right.
In regards to, I'll show you this, folks. $200 tablet from Walmart. It's a Samsung tablet. For my show stuff, meme maker, pic collage, and background remover on the internet, all free. All free. That's I literally do things on the cheap. I got a
Yep.
GoPro. I got a GoPro 6 that's lurking around my place for $50 at a pawn shop
Oh,
that I have
wow.
in the back, and a camera that I picked up for. It's a Canon camera that one of the dials is partly not working, but for a standard camera, $50 makes you look a little bit more professional. It's not, if you got to go used, go used.
Oh, yeah.
It might not look professional, but a lot of times you could do stuff as good as a professional, if not better. I'm not saying the man was the best podcaster ever, or what he did was, on the level of in regards to his stunts, jackass. I mean that with compliment, but it's content, and that's what you're trying to put out. Content. Are
Yep.
you going to get? Are you going to get go viral? No, no. I've been doing this not for 9 years. Most of it's solo, on and off. Um, I've been putting out 3 episodes a week right now. This is going to be our first episode for this week. Then we're going to have probably do a main episode, and if Ramirez gets off his rear end and records an episode for his show, we'll have a third episode. For those that the man, I don't know, we could have done this in the last main episode. For my shows, like I have a few friends like I do with the man, or I would like to consider him a friend.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and the thing is, he started doing a video podcast. I was like, dude, what are you doing with the audio? And he was like, audio. I'm just having fun filming a podcast. I was like, oh, goody. How about I save you a couple of bucks? I would like to distribute your show, the audio of your show, on my end of things. The only thing it'll be is like a quick intro from me and a quick outro from me. Um, the only thing editing I'll do to your show is boost the audio if needed, but I'm not removing anything. I'm not adding anything.
Right. It's still your original content.
It's still your original content. I think for his first 2 episodes, he didn't have any ending music, and I had some royalty-free stuff, and I just packed on like an ending music to it, and for like 20 seconds, just so there was some sort of ending. Creator ADHD, I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, very.
And it's just like, but in one of the recent episodes, he had like ending music to it. I'm like, oh, I don't have to put that there. But um, I'll say this: let the in jokes fly. The man can vouch. How many in jokes did you have on your show?
Oh, I completely lost count. There would be no way to count the amount of inside jokes we had on that show, and it got to be an issue because we would have new listeners come in and people would email us And what is with this? You guys cackle every time somebody mentions this, and I don't get it. And we got to where we were having to explain the same thing over and over and over again, and it's like, oh man, there was a lot.
There's going to become a time that if I get more than two folks over on Zoom, and if it's the one person I have on we're going to be forcing his name to be in pop cup underneath the Zoom aspect. Uh, Funny story. It's something I said on the show, our show. Pretty much what happened is like as you've done with your group, go to a con, you go to an after show. You
Oh
have a
yes.
little after party. And what happened was I went to the Harrisburg 4-State convention. It was me and a bunch of friends. We had a good time. And out of the five of us, three of us, not me, it was the bulk of the group was of the rainbow community.
Mm-hmm.
To be respectful. And
Right.
nothing wrong. Whatever you do in your own home is your business. And if you're happy, whatever. That's my standing. And we all first met up at a punk bar. No, I've been to punk bars. I love punk bars, independent music. And it was a bar that had um, like the classic NES and classic PlayStation stuff on the wall. So high alcohol content, beer, good indie music, and I get to play video games, not leaving my seat. Fuck yeah. Um, so by the time we all left that bar, I was maybe about 2.5 sheets to the wind. And hey, I'm not driving, so fuck y'all. And one of the other three were like, yeah, we hear this other bars having a kind of a superhero night. Because we were all thinking we were going to go to a strip joint. We decided against it. We didn't want to spend like a shit ton of money. All of us were mostly
Right.
broke. And we found out another place was doing a superhero night because of the 4-State. And that's when one of my friends turned to me and said, just to let you know, it's a gay bar. I went, just to let you know, I pointed at the room at hand. My element, that bar we were going to, your element. You see the problem here. Either one of two things going to happen. I'm going to get my ass kicked, or hilarity is going to ensue. Don't worry.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Maybe a little bit of both. And she was like, listen, I'll be there to make sure there's buffer. I'm like, there better be. And I said, also keep in mind, I'm a little drunk right now. We get there. In my head, like a lot of people who've been under the influence, act cool. But not too cool that you draw attention to yourself.
Right.
Unfortunately, one of our members of the party overshot the mark, drew attention to himself, and the door person was making fun of him. I'm like, thank God it's not me. Guess what we're doing right now? We're making fun of you. And thankful, I would say the other thankful part is that the place was relatively empty, so I didn't have to worry too much. But the doorman was like, okay, is this you guys' first time here? And that's when I had to pipe in, yeah, my first time here. And he's like, all right, downstairs is like the quiet area where we have a pool table. It looked like a basic bar, pool table, bar, get you drinks. Right here on the main floor is our dancing DJ and the bar. And upstairs is the dog pound. And I had that look in my face. Thankfully, my friend saw the look of, the fuck? And she was like, don't, no. I'll explain it after we get drinks, but no. And we get drinks, we get around, and that's when she says, upstairs is where the furries go and the folks that like to dress up like dogs. I like, there's a part of me, even though I'm drunk and I have questions, I'm not drunk enough to go upstairs. Yeah. So we have a good time, and me and my ride, the group, part of the group that I was staying with, because saving money instead of having a hotel, leave. Now there's still two people left. One person part of the Rainbow community, the other person not. We get about halfway back to my friend's place. We get a text on Messenger, not using real names. Tommy went upstairs. What? And I shout out from the back seat, wasn't voice. Pictures or it didn't happen. Next thing she's typing on the phone, picture or it didn't happen. Next thing, not even a minute later, ping photo. Now we're talking somebody that is of Hispanic descent and like 5'2", between these think Mo and Low size people. I use that reference because I've seen photos.
Yep, they're big old boys.
So, the big old boys that had like dog masks. And I'm like, so Tommy is a pup cup.
So now he's pup cup.
And the next day, we're like, we should get a pup cup from like Starbucks. But we were like, nah. I get there, they're taking out their stuff from the car. Since all my stuff fits in one bag, I go up and I'm like, I go up to, because he's helping his friend with the table. I went up to him and went, hey Joey, how's it going? How's your head? Got any hangover from last night? He went, no, I'm doing okay. I turned to Tommy and I went, hi Pup Cup, how you doing? He went, oh God, I'm never living this down. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not living this down. Never. And 6 months, not even 6 months later, earlier this year, I go to Hagerstown. They're both there. And because they both have a booth, I get to be, their booth is my home base. I mean, I can plop my shit there. And I got and went, hey, I'll use a different, hey Jake, how's it going? Right here. And he saw it the instant I started turning my head. The smile and the laughter, it was, I would have ribbed him so much for girly giggles, but it was, the laughter that was you would have been laughing too. I turned around and went, hi, Pup Cup, how's it going? And it was nothing but roaring laughter. You would do the same thing if I did it to Dobbs.
Oh,
you would be on the floor. And it's like, I'm not living this down. Oh, you will never live this down.
Nope,
Your
never.
name will go from Tommy to Pup Cup in an instant. It's not Tony Stark, it's Tony Stank. That's your new name now. It's Pup Cup. If he's on Zoom, it's like, oh no, you're not putting your name on Zoom. It's going to be Pup Cup. Change it now. Change it now, or else. So it's, and a lot of people are like, what's Pup Cup? Why is he named Pup Cup? It's weird. And have skits for your show. Have a skits. I don't have it available within reach. Do I have it? No, I don't. I'm not going to reach for it. My co-host that I rebooted with, like, let's do because she's an old school Flash Gordon fan, like the 80s. She's like, we should do a Clytus on board segment, and it'd be nothing but like Florida Man stories.
Oh,
like Florida Man stories, or oh, we got something from California. Florida Man, what's the matter? What's the matter? Are you okay, Florida Man? Why did Mississippi have to step up to the plate this time? Like the flip, and not to mention with internet being issues. One things that we had on, I noticed with my show, I don't know whose end it was. I know you like the paranormal a little bit. One things that I did for a while for my show is not just ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, aliens of all types and ages, and those listening to us from the afterlife, because you know how it is, and all podcasters that do audio see their audio. And I'd notice little, between the pauses, little bits. And a little bit behind the scenes, I have a secondary XLR mic that I keep beside me, just in case the one on my camera goes out. I have extra mic. So sometimes I hear what I'm sitting on, or I accidentally tap the mic. That's what that is. Or if I take a drink, it's that. Other times I'm seeing extra volumes. I'm like, what's this? None of us said anything.
It's EVP.
And it's I boosted it one day. I'm just like, we got haunted. Next week I told her, like, we got haunted. There was a whole mess of EVPs. I'm not talking like somebody tapping a mic. At one point it was like it was pretty much I'll do it on this one. Like, no one said nice t-shirt. Like, we were talking about Rise of the Evil Dead. Where did that come from? Or what the hell? I'm like, where are these weird things coming from? None of us said anything. Or it was like, I'm like, no one's saying anything. It's not like you have your little one coming in the room, or my friend who's the co-host, her son walking in to talk. Like, I heard you guys talking about this. I want to rate. All right, here's the mic. Step in. But it's just weird. I don't know if it's my end, her end, and it was just weirdness.
One of those weird things.
Yeah, it was, and I'll put it like this: it's not the first one I caught. It's the first one I'll say, in this setting I caught. I did a Paracon. I was asked because I wanted to cover it, paranormal convention, and I was like, all right, no cost. And you set up your table, and literally, it's the place that was doing it is like not even a third of a mile that way to me. It's at a local roundhouse, so it's like down the block. So how can I not say no? And thanks to my buddy, in doing this, I have a mic problem. I don't mean people named Mike. I mean, why aren't you talking into this? I give you a freaking microphone. Talk into it. I'm that asshole. And I asked everybody, it's like, all right, you're doing panel, I'll record. So I just set up my mic right near the speaker, so it could catch the audio, and I didn't have to bring all my shit. And besides no one wanting to use the microphone so it goes to the speaker, I'm recording all day, all 3 days, and the trains are going by. And I'm looking at the audio to separate the panels and so forth and so on, and one of it doesn't look like train noise. And I isolate it and I amplify it, and I'm doing this with my headset, and it comes off as I'm like, what did that sound like? It's like somebody came up to the microphone and whispered in, like, knew it was a microphone, saying, "Yeah, a train's going by, motherfucker." Like, I'm like, wow, that's weird. And I told her to, like, no, it was just probably train brakes. I'm like, dude, it's not train brakes. I live like not even 500 feet from the train track. I know what train brakes sound like. I know the difference between freight, Amtrak, and Mark train. Don't tell me I don't know the difference. But it's that weird, it was just fun, and I used it for engagements. Like, what do you think? I was told it was just the train braking. I don't think so. What did you hear? So it's the fun. It's you're laughing at it, and it's
and
it's like, I could probably have people like, oh, there's too many pauses. Why do you leave the pauses in? Just in case the spirits want to tell us what they think. It's for user engagement. Oh, you're just being lazy. Maybe. Yeah. We've had
little
EVPs
column A,
on
little column B.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm sure you've done that too.
Oh, very much so.
It's oh, it's so much. And again, if I haven't said it before earlier this episode, thank you for being on.
Oh, no problem,
And
man.
folks, I think we're going to end it there. Again, thanks to Mix, aka the man, to be on the show for the main episode that we had last week and this in the International Podcast Day special. I do recommend again for those watching this on YouTube, listening to us on listening to this episode on the audio side, because we will have probably a very extended episode. It's not just this interview conversation I had with the man. It's going to be a podcast 101 panel that we recorded at a four-state Comic-Con event. The plus we had a plus I might include the first podcast we tried, the Electric Eye, and maybe a shorter episode of or a clip from Slacker the Man to give you an kind of a
Oh, yeah.
sampling of where our influence is. So with that, I am Reverend Godfather, aka the Martinsburg Madman, and that's the man with this little girl.
Yep.
And also the links to everything that the man has done in regards to his stuff on Kindle Vella, and I might even include the Slacker and the Man YouTube channel in on for this episode, at least on the YouTube side of things. So feel free to show that channel some love, even though it's been kind of dead for the past 9 years and change. So, any last words? Any last
Hey,
words?
man, thanks for having me on, and we'll have to do it again soon.
No problem. Let me put it like this for the record before I hit stop. If you, by any chance, I know you're busy as a dad, as a writer, as a professional lifter of the weights. If by chance you watch something, you have that geek rage or whatever, and you want to set up, whether it be audio or video, I'll be more than happy to, just record it, send it my way. I'll be included in the main episode, and I'll be more than happy to include you in on it. So
That
that
sounds
way,
like an awesome idea, and we will definitely
so,
do that.
so take care, everybody, and we're out. And